All right. We're back for episode 28.
28.
Um,
And the uh, first of the new year.
oh yeah, this is the
The
first of the new
first
year.
of the new year. Yeah.
I don't know how I feel about New Year's. You have a resolution or no?
Don't try.
I noticed people, you know what I do like though? Some of my friends been posting like year in review type things. I guess the friends that I have that are more Instagram, they posted like, I don't know, I guess they got all their, it's an easy way. I guess it's some sort of a TikTok template or IG template. I don't know. I'm a boomer, so I don't know. But it just splices like all the videos that they have to like some some song, and it like bumps through like pretty quickly. You see their year in like a minute. Um, that's kind of cool. Also, if you I don't know, you saw on Facebook, our boy Billy posted this whole like, I mean, it looked like he just wrote like a few pages about his 2021, and that year in review was really impressive, and it was just cool just to see how much he did in the last year. Um, I don't know, maybe I should do something like that. But
Oh, snap. Yeah,
but
I
yeah, the
haven't seen
year in
that.
review, the year in review is cool.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe the New Year's resolutions, I'm not. Maybe I mean I don't know, man. What would be the most optimal way to use New Year's resolutions if that was something I wanted to do? Has that ever worked for you?
Uh,
And work for you doesn't mean that you have to have kept it over the course of the new year, but like
mm-hmm,
I don't know, because
mm-hmm.
I feel like I've made some resolutions in the past and they just kind of go away. So I stopped trying.
Yeah, yeah. So, um, the only thing that ever worked for me was actually the realization retroactively. Like I did a full year of Muay Thai and I didn't skip any class, like literally for the whole year. And I looked backward, I was like, holy crap! Like I didn't realize I did that. And then I think the year after was really good for me because I can't remember if that was the year that we did our night hike for Old Rag, but I really felt like that set the tone. And I was on this huge like you know physical exploration phase in my life where I would just like be pushing the boundaries and limits. So I think that was really interesting. So the story behind that was that we, instead of leaving for a hike when it's daylight, we left at 2 a.m. Right, arrived at like around 3:34 and try to time our hike, which we had never done before, which had considerable off paths and a rock scramble to boot in the dark, while inebriated, while it was like 30 something degrees. And so I think that set the tone for the rest of the year. And I ended up being able to, I think, really keep the momentum because it felt like such a big like feat, like it was unknown. There's an element, small element of danger, and then it was rewarded with like a sunrise. That in that year, I was able to push like the Wim Hof stuff, the cold stuff, the running stuff, and so while it wasn't as like, man, I wrote down my resolution, it was like almost, I don't know. I think that's what kind of happened, and then the subsequent year after that, I went live on IG when it was 25 degrees outside, right? Went to the pond in my backyard that had ice about that thick and took a pickaxe through it and then sat in it for 10 minutes. So that was my last couple memorable New Year's, I would say, and I don't know, it carried forward, but it wasn't like something I wrote down or thought about a lot. So
Yeah, I don't like New Year's resolutions, man.
yeah, I think though
Um,
your question is super valid though, which is why I kind of like substituted my own, which is to say you gotta find something like it is if you're gonna choose arbitrary times to like set an intention, if it's verbal or not. Like New Year's is as good as any, and you just gotta figure out what works for you or what feels right to you, right? Like, would you accept that? Like, how does that
Maybe I should try
jive
to
with
do
you?
one. I mean, like, don't get me wrong. I mean, the reason I didn't like it or don't like it, or I'm just like, New Year's resolutions are kind of silly, is because like 95% of them probably don't work. I mean, how often do you hear about New Year's resolution after, I don't know, 2 weeks into the new year? You know what
Yeah.
I mean? It's not like in February someone's like, yeah, man, I'm still kicking it, still doing my resolution or whatever. But there is something to be said about, I guess, like long-term planning, like, doing something long enough that it compounds. Um,
Mm-hmm.
like that to me is definitely powerful. So maybe not with New Year's resolutions, but just planning a year ahead, and the new year is a good time to reflect and then being like, all right, it's almost like the debrief, like, what happened this last year and what do I want to happen this year and what do I have to do to make that happen. So maybe I should take another look at that. And I'm okay with doing the New Year's resolutions 2 years or 2 weeks into the new year because I'm always late with stuff anyways. But
Yeah.
um,
So actually, there's a thought that occurred to me that I've been thinking about too, as you mentioned that, which is I think when we talk about New Year's, there's a disproportionate emphasis on the doing part, right? The discipline part, the how do I whip myself into shape? How do I shame myself into spending less money, eating better, exercising more, that kind of stuff, right? Like, how am I going to carry it out and execute? But I think equally, if not more important, and I would contend more difficult part of that is kind of like what you said in is seeing the long view, right? You know, I maintain that one of the hardest questions to actually ask somebody really is, what do you want, right? What do you actually want? I want to be a doctor. Do you really want to be a doctor, or does society and does your mom want you to be a doctor, right? Do you really want to be healthy, or like and look good, or is it just because like you want to like look good at a Vegas pool party, or get like a really hot like spouse or something, partner? Like, what do you actually really, really like truly in your heart of hearts want, right? And I really maintain that it's not that easy, for people who are listening to this and say, yeah, what are you talking about? Of course, I want to be a millionaire, right? Do you really want to be a millionaire? Like that's a lot of people who get a lot of money are one of the most unhappy people in the world. There's a lot of psychological literature speaking to that. So I think that's an interesting one. And the reason why it's also interesting supported is that there's people who sell. We were just talking a little bit about like these online frame courses that cost like $2,000, whatever. There are so many of them for helping you uncover what you want. Like that's not an accident, right? Is because sometimes you have to go through this methodical, structured way to like actually extract that desire. And I think if you do that part right, then the execution part isn't as hard as it may seem. It's because you haven't found the thing you actually want that the execution part is hard, because you don't actually want it that much, and so therefore it's not as meaningful to you. There's not the same type of intrinsic reward, the same type of drive. Um, so so that's funny. Like I would say that like I didn't do resolutions this year. It's not really it hasn't really a formal thing for me. But I will say that this is the first year in a long time I really actually don't know what I want. I'm not quite sure at all. Like nothing really comes to mind. And so, yeah. Any thoughts to that?
oh man, that's a tough question, man. Figuring out what you want. I think a lot of times, sure myself included, but a lot of people for sure, you kind of almost like avoid that question, even though it seems like a positive one, because the way you answer that question forces you to look at yourself in the mirror almost. Because let's say the thing that you want is probably something that you don't have, and there's probably a reason you don't have it. It's probably because you are avoiding the shit that you need to do to get that thing, right? So,
Yeah. And then to add to that, there's also this habit we have of telling ourselves, and this is one of those keys to life here, that when we get what we want, we'll be happy, right? I'm not happy now, or I'm not as happy as I could be, right? Or at peace as I could be because I haven't gotten what I want. And it doesn't even have to be selfishly motivated, right? Like for example, I often tell myself that like I want my parents to be secure and happy in old age. Like I want their marriage to be okay. Like I stress over that, right? And I'm like not happy. I'm like oh, I cannot be happy because they're not sorted out for. And so I think what you said is interesting because I didn't think of it, but that's so on point that it requires so much almost brutal honesty in yourself, which is yeah, how are you getting in your own way, right? Like what excuses are you making to not getting what you want if you really want it? And if you get that thing you want, are you gonna be happy now? And hopefully, I think hopefully people already know the answer to that. It's just like, no, you should be happy right now, right? And being happy now and at peace now will help you get what you want versus vice versa, um, by placing it on any sort of like contingency, like external contingency.
Yeah, I would go as far as to say, I would go as far as to say that. So you're saying that you should be happy, kind of like in the moment, like pursuing what you want, as opposed to, um, I mean, it's kind of like like somebody's like, yo, I'll be happy if I have $1 million, and then if you give them $1 million, they'll probably be happy for like a month, but then they'll feel the same way, like the just not enough feeling. It's like the just not enough feeling that someone has within them is the thing that makes them think, okay, well, I don't have enough of this, so if I get more of it, then once I get this threshold, then I will be happy. But it's an illusion because the just not enough is a feeling. I don't know how to, it's like a feeling of inadequacy. And you think that this external thing will make you adequate, but the feeling of inadequacy is the feeling that you need to kind of like dig into, as opposed to the illusion that, hey, this thing will make me feel adequate. Um,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. We've gone full circle in terms of like how if you force yourself to project into the future and interrogate it, it should bring you back to exactly where you are right now, right? Um, because yeah, as soon as you get what you want, you'll want something else. Like it's human nature. It's driven, arguably driven, like the entirety of our evolution to this point. The dissatisfaction that just like normalizes itself. And I was thinking a little bit too about how one of the best things that can happen to a person is actually getting what they want, um, because you'll realize nothing changes, right? Like nothing changes. If anything, it gets worse, right? There's a Ram Dass quote where he's like, as soon as you get what you want, you won't want it anymore, but what you want will keep coming at you. And so then you're like, dang it. Um, so that's been fun for me. But yeah, I think you said it perfectly. Um, you are your that dissatisfaction with not being where quote unquote you want to be in time and space, yet will like ironically inhibit you from actually getting there, right? Because to get there, you also have to be extremely aware of the present moment, like what you can do now, today, this moment, right? And then tomorrow, like in such a small time scale. And it takes a type of resilience and understanding to keep paying into that, um, you know, into that equation day over day. I think that people burn out because they exhaust so much energy in the tension, in the wanting, right? Which is why I don't know if you caught this when you asked me what my resolution was, and off the cuff I said, "Don't try." That's actually my mantra for the year, is to not try, to release that energy that comes from like tensing and not being completely fucking happy and at peace right now, while I, put one foot in the other trying to get to the top of old rag in the middle of the dark. So, yeah, I think it's important.
So what you're trying to say is don't try your best.
Yeah. No, I'm not saying don't try your best. There's a difference between don't try and don't try your best, right? Um, I think the best is a great qualifier. I don't want to infringe upon, take away from that. Just don't try though. Like flow with it, let it happen. I was listening to a Sharon Salzberg lecture. She's a really one of the best, I think, Vipassana meditation teachers in America, I would say. And she had this like mantra that stuck with me. Not mantra, it's like a little saying that stuck with me. Whenever you're like caught in a situation, whether it's psychological or physical, which is just to say something will happen, right? Like something will happen. And she was talking about how like she was trying to catch a flight, and she's a meditation teacher, and like I think everyone can relate to the shitstorm that can happen on a departure gate, and all of these things in her mind, like, oh my god, if I'm going to be late here, if I go to this other city, are there going to be rental cars, da 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 da, and then she remembered wanting to call her friend up, and because they're all friends and they're all in the meditation space, she's like, oh my god, he's just going to say something will happen and I'm gonna be so pissed off. But it's kind of related to the don't try, right? Like, look, don't try, something will happen. Something will happen, and then you can try. You're gonna handle that thing when that something happens. So,
I feel like I don't try all the time.
you are a guru. You are a guru when it comes to that.
I don't mean that in a good way. I mean, I'm like, all right, I'm probably not gonna go after that thing because it's all the way over there.
Well, it's perhaps selfish of me that I get to learn externally from what a person, the physical embodiment of "Don't Try" is, and to see it as a manifestation. But you are a master at "Don't Try." You
Perhaps
want
I
to
should
speak
try.
to that a little bit,
I should try harder.
and not try. Yeah, you should.
Well, it's weird because like if you try too hard, then what people need to tell you is, yo, man, like maybe you should like just let things happen. You know what I mean? Like if you're just like I don't know, just highly motivated and just type A and just always going after it and just just wake up in the morning and you're just like, all right, I gotta do all this shit before I go to bed. I have 16 hours and the clock starts now, and you're just like that type of person, then someone probably needs to tell your ass to like to chill out a little bit, right? I'm not saying that's
Mm-hmm.
you, but like I definitely know people that are like that, and their balance and their equilibrium is probably more close to yo, don't try. But then like for me, I feel like I should probably try a little harder. You know what I mean? Because for me, it's kind of like, okay, well, uh, there's it's always like a pendulum almost, and you're always gonna be on um one side of it, and I don't think it ever. I mean, I don't think anyone's ever gonna like stop right in the middle and be like, all right, this is it, and if I don't move from this spot right here, then I'm good. But I think at different seasons of your life, um, and different, I guess, like circumstances that you get yourself in, then don't try make sense, or maybe like try a little harder. Because I think for me, try a little harder has always made more sense. So I don't know if I've ever like crossed that little middle threshold. And I can't really see myself trying so hard that I'm like, man, fuck, I gotta stop trying, man. Um, you know what I'm trying to say? Like, does that make sense? Because I feel like I have like the opposite problem. Not problem, but
Yeah,
kind of like like those are my challenges.
sure, sure, sure. No, that makes sense. Can I ask you, in your memory, when was a moment that you felt like you were trying the most?
Um, Honestly,
Poker related, maybe, or maybe a relationship. I think relationships actually are a space where thanks for the out there, and you're not saying that I'm a person who's like over trying, and I think I try to find a balance there, but like it's almost though through the spiritual journey that like because externally people might say, oh yeah, Steven's like pretty go with the flow and chill, but then like oh yeah, but I also meditate, and then when I meditate, I also like fall into these like ego traps of trying, right? Which we know that the spiritual place is the place that's most wrought with traps around trying. And oh yeah, so anyway, I going back to the concept of maybe in relationships you've tried, or because that's a place I find myself trying a lot, like trying to like not control another person, but it's not the right word. But I think that is maybe that is the right word though, right? To be honest with myself, like I think one of the reasons why we muck up relationships so much is that because we are trying to control the other person, whether we know it or not. There's this phrase I read on Reddit the other day. I was just like, helping is the other side of control, is the sunny side of control, right? A lot of times you think you're helping somebody, you're actually just trying to control them, right? So anyway, sorry, away from me, back to you. When was the last time you felt like um, you're really trying?
um, that's a funny question. Because in my head, initially when you said that, I was like trying to think back, and I was going really far back, bro. Um, I don't know, man. It was probably like when I was at UVA or some shit like that. It was probably like where I was like, all right, man, I really have to try hard to get this, and I'm just gonna, uh, I don't know, maybe I got some PTSD from trying so hard, and then so I stopped trying. But and maybe it's something that's been in me this entire time. I think maybe around the time when I either got into UVA or like before when I was trying to get into TJ around that time, I definitely tried really hard to get into like let's say TJ for high school and didn't get in. Um, and then I probably didn't try that hard for the years of college until like junior year and then early senior year when I'm like, oh shit, I need to try to get into UVA because it was made to seem so important to me by my parents, and it probably was to some level, but obviously in retrospect, it probably wasn't that important because I never used my degree um, in the manner that they thought I would. But at the same time, I think that was the last time I tried really hard to achieve something where I was like, yo, I gotta really get this. Because even like the poker years and stuff like that, a lot of that was, I mean, I could have tried a whole lot harder, like for sure. I always like super go with the flow, and I was just kind of like, I didn't care if I was better or worse than anybody. But I just found myself in lucky situations, and I just exploited those situations until they ran out. And I was just kind of like, oh, this is easy. Oh, wait, it's hard now. Time to go find a different game or go do something else. So yeah, I don't know. I'm literally, fuck. I mean, there's no way it's been 20 years since I've tried, right?
I think anyone who just heard that would probably throw up hearing that
Really?
Hector could have tried harder at poker.
No, I definitely
Like,
could have, I definitely could have tried
yeah,
harder. Okay.
that's amazing, man, bro. That's amazing, and and I think that's where I've also pointed myself at. Like, there's an amazing truth there, um and it's the top of my uh personal page, right? It's my primary tagline is um, you know unlocking staggering productivity through mastery of play and mindfulness. And right beneath it, I have, just like George Mumford, who was the mental coach for Kobe Bryant and Michael Jordan, and a meditation teacher, like, teaches and espouses. And I think that what you just said with poker, I mean, obviously, there's also I think that your algorithm was also able to exploit like high value situations, right? Um, so there's that piece of it where that's the intelligence of the algorithm, but like the flowing through it, right? Like the actor, you not like getting all tensed up, I think is critical of that. Um, And so I think that's super powerful. Is all to say that. The other thought that came to mind though, and I think you kind of blew it apart with poker, if I'm being honest. But the thought that came to mind when you were talking about UVA and getting into TJ, which is a super prestigious, right, like kind of like prep school, if you will, for college, is like how our performance and our trying is changed by the imposition of a scoring system or a ranking system. Because I think that those are correlated. Like, kids are just so geared to try because, you know, uh, you got to get that score. You got to beat out these other ones. You got to get that. You're in a grade, whatever. You're just graded like so heavily. Um, which makes me think of sports, right? Because there is this grading element to it there, which makes me think of how about flag football, like or the sports that you've done, and I think you were in a volleyball tournament recently, right? Or regularly even. Like, is there a trying there as well, or
Well, it depends on what you mean by try. Because I
yeah?
mean, obviously if I'm playing basketball, I'm trying to get the ball in the hoop, but there's like different levels to even that game, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Like try to do what? Try to have fun playing basketball with my friends, or try to show up to the basketball court 2 hours before them so I can practice all my drills so when they get there, I'm gonna kick their ass. You know what I mean? Like there's like different levels to trying. Like for instance, like let's say with Muay Thai, right? There was a period in your life where you were not just doing Muay Thai, you were living and breathing Muay Thai. You were like, however many hours a day, every single day, and then even fly to Thailand to immerse yourself in that culture. I could be doing Muay Thai, but then, just, showing up to 2 or 3 classes a week, and then, maybe I'll skip a week, maybe, so it's not the same. You see what I'm trying to say? I've never gotten so deep where I'm like, all right, man, this is like, let's see how fast I can make this car go doing this thing. Even with poker, I never did that. And
Mm-hmm.
and I think with poker, I was put in a unique situation where my skill set, the poker landscape at the time, made it so it felt very natural to just already be way ahead of the curve of everyone trying to get into the game. And then the fact that Z always tried, like Z's the opposite of me, my older brother. He tries, like, if he's gonna do something, like it doesn't pique his interest unless he's like, yo, I need to try my hardest, uh otherwise, like I'm gonna fail. You know what I mean? Like he will go find something where he's like, all right, look, is this is this the biggest mountain I can climb? Like, you know what I mean? Like he'll go find whatever his Everest is, and then he'll just start climbing. And then if he falters, then that's like a wrap for that whole thing. And Z will go there and then he will literally immerse himself in that, um just because he wants to be the best at that thing, and he wants to see how far he can push himself and his body and his mind and stuff like that. But I've never immersed myself that deep in I don't want to say anything, but probably not nearly as close as, you know what I mean? Like it's been a while. um
Yeah. Yeah.
and maybe there's something to be said. I know a lot of times, I've read books that say a lot of times, like I think Carol Dweck's book, she popularized the idea of fixed mindset and growth mindset. A lot of times, people that have fixed mindsets, maybe because of like some early failings or whatever, maybe I didn't get a TJ or something like that. You attribute, hey, if you don't try, then you can't fail because of some early failure. You know what I mean? So then you kind of like, I mean, I could have done so much better if I tried, but of course I didn't try. So, like obviously, obviously a B's not bad. I mean, I literally just studied the night before. B minus, I'll take one of those too. So, I mean, there's a lot to be said around that, I think.
Yeah. No, so it's worth clarification, right? So I think that, I mean, trying is not like being diligent or going and practicing and doing your reps, right, or preparation. So here's the way I kind of put it together in my head when you challenged that. So everything's mirrored, right? Should I start over here? So anyway, there's the trying where it's really good, it's what you need, 100% positive. Then there's diminishing returns, right? diminishing returns on it. Like you're not getting as much back. And then there's this line, right, where you've stepped a touch into the negative. And I think the challenge is to stay right there, right? I think sometimes people overshoot, um, and they go so far into this side where this side of trying is actually counterproductive to you. You are, uh, you're stressing yourself out too much. You are not surrendering the right amount of control in the right places, right? Knowing, like, accurately defining the locus of control versus the locus of influence, and trying to overexert. And I think that line is that dangerous line is where I think we should always try to be. um, and it comes with everything, really. So, in my mind, that's what I think of when I think of trying in this concept. Is that balance, that line right there?
Is that
Um,
different for different people?
yeah, I think it's super individual, and I think that only the person doing it and perhaps and a coach, right, and a coach that knows the actor, athlete, whatever, the person really well would know, um, if that trying if all the energy tokens are in the right in the right slots. So yeah, I think it's a tough one.
It'd probably be really fun to try really hard at something. Um, like really hard at something. But I feel like for me to try really hard at something, it would have to be some like I would have to know, or I would have to trick myself to find something that I'm like, yo, this is actually really fucking fun. And you know what I mean? Then it wouldn't feel like trying. Maybe with poker, what I did with poker, probably, for someone that didn't enjoy playing poker, it would have felt like trying like really hard,
Hmm.
but perhaps for me, it was just kind of like, fun the whole time. It fit my natural skill set. It all like the wins, the way that it was arranged, if I won a small amount of money, it felt good, so it didn't feel like I was trying. If I won a little bit more money, it felt good. If I graduated to another game, it felt good. So there was like trying, but it wasn't like, in my head, I feel like trying is like, yo, like this kind of hurts a little bit, but I have to do it
Mm-hmm.
in a
Mm-hmm.
way. And I don't know, maybe that's a discipline thing, or I like, for instance, when you're doing Muay Thai, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
when you were on your grind, when you were like deep in the game, and you were probably going, what, like 2 a days, 2 hours each, or something like, or whatever you were doing. Did it feel like trying, or was it like, yo, this is like exhilarating, or is it both, or like, I mean, how does that play out?
Um, it was both, right? It was both. So like it came in waves. So like if it was novel, it was like the first time of anything never felt like too much of a grind, right? But then subsequent fights, like my in between fights, like uh, it definitely became discouraging, right? Because and yeah, and definitely like you had to try. You'd show up, you'd be depleted, and you just your ass kicked for 2 hours, and you're like, why can't I beat? And it might be ego. You're like, why can't I beat that one guy? Like, and then with Muay Thai, with Thailand, it was interesting because the first fight camp I did. It's funny because I did 3 fight camps in Thailand, but only one fight actually materialized because they getting canceled. The first fight camp, even though I was pushing harder than I ever pushed, like to your point, because it was so novel and new, like there was almost no trying. It was exhilarating.
Hmm.
But camps 2 and 3, um, and why I eventually took such a long break was because there was so much trying. But I am so grateful for that experience because that was the absolute hardest I could have tried without having the energy of like this is fun anymore, right? This is not fun anymore. This is ridiculous. I don't want to do this anymore. So I think it, I don't know. It's interesting, like, cause I mean, for poker, you didn't. It doesn't sound like then that you burnt out that fun element. Like it kept being fun, right? Or like maybe you can expand on that a little bit. Um,
Okay, so that's both good and bad.
yeah.
I made it a point to never play unless I wanted to play.
Hmm.
And and I remember that being a point. And you know, and there were times in poker when but I was always like very flexible with my time. Um because I didn't have a place to be. I basically was like, okay, so this is like back in like before 2010. I remember we paid some programmer to like build this program that text messaged us uh whenever there was like a fish sitting at the table, and we were playing the highest stakes games, right? And there would be this one fish that was dumping like a lot of money anytime he sat down, but he would come at random hours. And then so for me, I didn't need to be on a clock. So I was just thinking, okay, look, if I just follow this dude around and just came, even if it was 3 in the morning, anytime this guy logged in, I wouldn't have to play any other games, and I would make way more money just doing this. And then so it never felt like trying because A, we were winning, and B, I didn't have to. It was almost like I found a shortcut rather than like playing like the better players and like the games that run at normal times. I didn't have to try as much to get better at poker because my skill set was okay. I'm just gonna be awake and available to play anytime. And then this is the biggest fish on the site. He's dumping more money than if I played for 10 hours the rest of the day. And I would just follow that dude around. So it was almost like I found like a shortcut. So I never really had to try, for those years at least. Um, and I think later when it started getting harder, I was I would play farther and fewer in between. There would still be some spots, but then because I wasn't willing to try, when the game got like tougher, I was kind of like, you know what, this is maybe probably not worth it for me anymore. Like the threshold for trying wasn't there, if that makes any sense.
I can super relate to all of that in so many aspects of my life. Um, so I'm actually I'm actually reconciling that right now live as it's bubbling up. Yeah, I mean, I guess this speaks a little bit more to when I was alluding to your algorithm too of finding like the massive mismatches, right? A part of that motivation for you when you were playing, was it the fact that you had like as you were playing, the fact that you had found this way, was that like very like fun for you, to say, I got this shortcut, I'm on it.
Yeah, I mean, okay, so poker, like to me, playing poker was purely to make money. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
it was a fun way for me to make money because I was just playing this game and all of a sudden I was making a bunch of money. I was like, oh, cool, uh like I really enjoy playing this game and I'm making money, and then it started becoming like a whole lot of money. But the end goal was always, after a certain point in poker, I mean it's like a scoreboard in a game. Like you try to get as many points as possible. In poker, the score is money. So for me, I was always like, all right, how do I make more money doing this?
Hmm.
Obviously, I'm like kind of lazy, so I'm always like, all right, how do I make more money in less hours? Or wait, out of the 10 hours I played, out of the 20 hours I played, like what were the hours where I made the most money? And then I'll be like, oh wait, these 4 hours when so and so was playing, I made so much money. Wait, he's losing this much money. Okay, I need to find more of these 4 hour blocks rather than playing the full 20 hours. I need to find when this dude's gonna be online. And even if he's only online for 6 hours, I'd rather play all six of those hours and none of the other, you know, 20 hours. And I would probably still make more money, or I would make the same amount, but it would be with like much less effort. So I'm always looking for like that shortcut, I guess. Um, and perhaps that's a strength, but also like a weakness. It's like an inherent like if you're not someone that's prone to trying hard, but you still want to have the same level of success, then you have to look at it differently. You have to find a shortcut. You have to do something that other people aren't doing.
Right, right. And if you will allow me to say speak for you in this case, uh, like it was the confluence of not only your mindset, right, in finding these like wins and luck, some degree of luck always, but also like just aptitude. Like you're good enough to make like seize that opportunity, right? Like not everyone, like you put me in that situation, I'm not gonna be able to like, I'm not, don't have the mind for poker in the same way. Um, and so where you're saying like this could be really bad is if you're not at the right opportunity with the right aptitude, then it could be really bad if you're just constantly looking for shortcuts and you haven't found those two other things yet, right, to the equation. And then maybe you got to just like buckle down on something else to get you to a place where you can have that opportunity that matches.
Yeah, and I think one of the reasons is bad is because I don't know, it's almost like you never get to see yourself trying. You never get to
Mm,
fully immerse yourself in, okay, look, I'm gonna, it's like if you drive a car and you never floor it to see how fast it could go. Like,
mm,
you know what I mean? And you maybe you can't get yourself to get up to that gear the same way other people can. So I think that could possibly be the reason that is, it would be like, let's say you live your entire life and you're just like been on cruise control the entire time. And that is, I mean, I don't really have any complaints because it's nice to like be chilling on the entire time, right? But then at the same time, if you never floor it, then you never really get to see how fast it goes too. But perhaps that's just like a personal, like, hey, I'm curious how fast would this go? And for me, I know it wouldn't be something where I'm like, I would never do something and try just to try, like, if it didn't interest me, if it wasn't like, yo, like, this seems super cool, I really need to get really fucking good at this, and the only way to do that is by trying really hard, then
mm-hmm.
I just know I'm not gonna do it. Like, I don't have
Yeah.
discipline like that. And if and to me, I think discipline is like, I need to do this shit that's not fun, but I'm gonna do it anyways because I'm disciplined or something, something to that nature. I don't know if I articulated it that well, but I need it to be like, yo, I need to do this thing that's really hard, but I found a way to make it fun.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Maybe that's asking for too much.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's interesting. Something will happen. We'll see how it is. I don't. There's certainly uh, nothing wrong with it, but to your point, it would be cool to see how fast that car could go, right? And how it whips around the bend. So I hate that my mind went here, right? Because you're obviously a good friend, but I was like, okay, so the only two, I think there's only two things that could get hacked to like floor the damn car, which is one, it's like fun enough, and I don't know, that circumstance was like, I don't know, it was pressing and fun enough, but then the other two is that like if something was at stake, right, and maybe even something outside of yourself where it really mattered. And we were very lucky because I think our parents absorbed a lot of that for us. And knock on wood, we're still relatively young, so I think the tragedies of life haven't really started to roll in as they would as you start to enter twilight. But you know, usually those are the times where you get tested and the car needs to go. So time will tell.
Yeah, it's interesting when you grow up in a manner where your parents absorb all of that because they do that, out of love to make sure that you never had to, like, so you have the
Mm-hmm.
freedom to choose whatever you want to do. But one thing that, and they're not taking this away from you. They're giving you freedom to choose, but sometimes you need to have that gun pointed to your head to see how fast the car can go. You know what I mean? So not that they're taking this from you, but like, you're not receiving the gift of of yo, you have to do this. let's see if you can do it. Like the, and I wouldn't even call it like a gift. It would almost be like a, I mean, if you can get through it, then yeah, it's a gift. You know what I mean? Like you don't get to see the, yo, let's just throw this dude into the deep end and see if he can, sink or float type of situation. Um, I don't think anyone wants to. Well, first of all, I don't think anyone gives that to anyone thinking it's a gift, because I don't think it is. Um, but at the same time, it's like, I don't know. It's like I can see the generational difference between how I grew up and even like, my younger siblings. Like not having to worry about money versus, when I was younger, my family didn't have when I was younger, my family didn't have as much money, so I had to think about that. And perhaps that's what like made it so I was more driven in poker where it didn't feel like I was trying. I was like, oh
Mm-hmm.
wait, I'm making like this much money just clicking buttons. Oh yeah, I could do this all day. You know what I mean? But maybe
Yeah.
maybe I wouldn't have been as driven in poker and it would have felt a lot like trying if I'm just like clicking buttons for like this resource that I didn't was never scarce in my life.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, almost certainly, right? Like you spoke on one of our prior pods of your parents very, openly telling you and Z as the elder brothers that, hey, we're passing this to you and you need to be able to kind of pass it on to the rest of the family. And so, yeah, I can totally see how that would be a big motivator. And isn't it interesting how to preserve that with future generations? Like, I already think about, like, our kids, just like you, to your point, like, for my kid, I would want them to, like, say, for example, work, to understand the value of work, but not necessarily for them to like have to spend their time working where they could use it to explore intellectual creative pursuits, like, try be on a team, do whatever else, right? There's like so much more they could do. They don't have to worry about money. Like, I would want to maximize their freedom and maximize their hand, but a part of that is also instilling the lessons that we had. And it's so interesting because it gets harder with each subsequent like cascade, even within the same generation. Um, Curious if you what are your thoughts on that? Because like, I come up with like little techniques like, man, like we definitely have to go to like a soup kitchen and travel to a third world country or something. Nothing heavy, but just like ambient exposure to those elements of the human experience, right? That they might not they might take for granted, if we didn't intentionally like place that experience there or place them in that experience.
Um,
Like, how do you keep someone humble, right? How do you who will never experience that?
it's hard to give that experience without giving that experience. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like I've always played around with this thought in the back of my head where, I'm like, yo, my kids are gonna grow up poor. You know what I mean? And poor, and that would include me too, of course. Or at least modest. I mean, I don't know. I mean, and I know the decision is much harder than that because obviously if you grow up poor, then you have to like live in a neighborhood where the schools aren't good and things like that, and the environment,
Hmm.
possibly less safe. So maybe if there's like some balance where it's like, I don't know, middle class, but not like upper middle class type of situation. Hey, we don't have money to get that, so you're gonna have to like, live with this thing. Because like for instance, I didn't grow up poor. Like we were never like poor. We were definitely like middle class. Maybe at times like lower middle class, and then moving up to upper to not upper middle class to like middle class after a certain point. But there were definitely times like I remember like when I was younger where it was kind of like hey, like money's tight, so we gotta strap down, and that at the time, maybe um and as a child it wasn't even that unideal. It was just probably like, oh, this is how it is, I guess.
Hmm.
I guess this is where we go buy clothes. We buy clothes from Ross. That's not a big deal. Like you can find good shit at Ross. You know, uh if you I still buy my cleats at Ross. You know,
Yeah, dude.
like
Ross
I
is a gold mine for cleats, for sure.
yeah,
Yeah.
Ross is definitely the place for cleats. I get like my cleats in the last like since I discovered this, maybe I don't know, five years ago or something like that, I've never paid more than like $15 for a pretty solid pair of cleats because they all just go to Ross and you just get last season's like cleats that used to cost $80.
Yeah. You know what another hack is? The Rosses near affluent places or near outlet stores, outlet malls have like they get all the discharge from those places too. So it's like not equal too. It's kind of interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know how you give the gift without giving the gift. You know what I mean? Like how would I give you the gift of I don't know, whatever you gain from you know like all the blood, sweat, and tears from going through like all these Muay Thai like training camps and shit like that. Like, how do I give you that gift without, you walking through, that obstacle yourself?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Whether forced or not, willingly or against your will, meaning like, if you had no choice, but you had to go through it because I don't know, maybe the place you grew up in Thailand or whatever, it was the only way out or whatever. Forced to do it, not forced to do it willingly. Like either way, you end up with a very similar gift. But can you get that gift without having walked the walk?
Uh, I mean, I would say my quick answer would be no, right? But it's interesting that you brought up Muay Thai because I think that's where sport is actually a really beautiful thing, right? And it makes me sad because for people who kind of disparage sport or don't see it for what just actually how profound it is. Um, I think if all things being equal, right, and you wanted to give your kid a very privileged upbringing, but you've signed them up for a sport and said, hey, you need to try your absolute hardest at this. Like, I want number one, right? And that can just impart so much of this lesson because I mean, there's so many elements of sport, right? You have to work on your flexibility. You have to work on your cardio. You have to work on your strength. You have to work on your coordination. You have to do this one part of this drill, and then have that lump it again with part B of that drill. And there's so many opportunities for you to say, for your mind to protest, right? And your body to protest. Like, I don't want to do this, right? I don't want to do this. But that moment where you're like suffering. Like I mean, it's suffering, right? You're out of breath. Your lungs are about to explode. Your muscles are like drained, and you're saying I got it though, right? I think that's at its core, fundamentally, what we're talking about is just like persevering through suffering, even when the logical mind, like shutting down the logical mind, right? It's like this doesn't make sense, but you know that it does. Like you know that it will. And so then now you add now another sprinkle of faith onto it too, right? So I think teaching people to like bear suffering, persevere through it, and apply action in the service of faith, right? Because it can't be logical, right? It has to be at a certain point where it's like I actually don't know, right? I just have to believe. Whether I believe because other people have done it and I therefore I know I should be able to do it, or I just know, right? And so I think those three elements are super critical. And sport is a great ground for giving you that stuff, right? In a simulated way versus like in a dangerous way.
Um, yeah, man. You know what's weird? Okay, so I'm gonna take this back to my day to day now, and this might change subject or not, but what you were talking about kind of rings true to me. I remember, so in the last couple of weeks, I haven't, and I think also because of COVID, I've been kind of laying low, so I haven't been going to the gym. or playing like pickup basketball or any of that stuff. Um, and it's noticeable to me when I don't work out. But I do remember the last time I worked out, and I don't know, I've been falling off of my workouts and stuff like that more lately, and then because of COVID, like it kind of made it worse. I didn't get COVID, but the fact that it's going around and stuff. I remember the last time I played basketball, like maybe a couple weeks ago, and I hadn't played in a long time, and I was playing, and normally something would have been easy for me, but after like maybe playing for like 20 minutes, like my body just didn't want to do it anymore, but I was trying to win. And and there was this moment where I was like, no, no, fuck that. Like I have to do this. And the thing is, obviously, because I was winded, and I I probably didn't perform as well as I would have normally, but it just felt nice to push your body to the point where it's kind of like, yo, like I don't want to do this. And then you just do it, and then your body just kind of like tries its best anyways. Like there's something to be said about getting yourself to that point in exercise, and maybe as a daily thing, you find what that is, whether it's like you jog, I don't know, until your lungs hurt and you're like, no, fuck it, I'm gonna keep going. There's something to be said to finding that space and trying to be able to exist in that space, and even if it's not for a long period of time, even if it's just for like a minute, 30 seconds, or like or however long you can do it for. I think getting yourself to that moment and staying there for a little bit, like it always feels good. Uh, I think it feels good during too, depending on like what the hell's going on in your mind. But so I guess it depends. But it always feels good like after, and I don't know how that works. It's probably some sort of like endorphin rush or whatever reward system your body has for being like, yo, you tried your hardest, bro. Here's a I don't know, here's some endorphins. But I don't know, man. And when I go long without having that, when I get that, when I have that feeling back, I'm like, yo, this is why I like playing basketball. This is why I like, whatever the thing is that gets me to that point. So yeah, you're right. This like sports like kind of brings that out in you in a very safe, like I don't have to get chased by like a lion to feel endorphins. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's super interesting, and it it's almost, I feel like this is almost an analogy, like we've kind of abstracted trying out to this space of sports, and I almost feel like if there was like a third person sitting to the left of you, right, of me right now, who, because you and I both like sports, right? But if there was like, just like how when we were talking about trying, you're like, I mean, I just look for the fun. I look for the exploitable domain. Not too big on just trying to try. And then, so we found sports a place where you exert a little bit more. But then maybe there's a third person who's like, I know people like this, right? They're like, why would you sweat? Like, oh, like, why would you breathe? Like, that sounds miserable. Like, I want to be in this air conditioning with like soft carpet on my feet, okay? Like, and I'm not disparaging that person, right? This hypothetical person or the friends that I know that are like this at all. Like, this is all about like coalescing our viewpoints together and exploring, right? And but as you were saying that, I was like, I know people who are listening to what you're saying, and like they'd be like, oh, and just completely revulsed, or repulsed.
I'll disparage those people for you, man. I mean, I just okay. Or not in a it'll be one of those things where it's kind of like, yo, you just haven't found the taste for it yet. Like you haven't
yeah.
like you haven't felt it yet. You it'll be like before I ever like liked let's say uni, right? I tasted it, I'm like, oh,
Mm.
it looks gross. But then after I acquired that taste, I was like, oh wait, I get it. This is why people pay so much money for this like thing. And kind of I don't know. I do feel like one of the things that makes one of the easiest things you can do, like life hack, um, find a hobby that uh find a hobby that requires you to be physical. Find
Uh
a
huh.
hobby that you like. A hobby by definition is something that you like that requires you to be a little bit physical, whether that's like hiking, or whether that's, like, because even on hikes, a lot of times you're going uphill for a long time and you're just kind of like, yo, don't really want to do this, but I know, like, if you're enjoying the hike, then it doesn't matter. You just one foot after another until you hit that state. It's like you're forcing yourself into like this flow state, and it
Mm,
feels good, and it's kind of like, and I think with sports specifically, it works well with people that are competitive in a way that they want to win, and it's like, I'm not gonna lose to this guy. I'm not gonna, or I mean, and maybe you do lose to that guy, but either way, if you lose, like you're fighting for your life almost, but it's not like you're not actually fighting for your life. It's like a simulated like situation. I don't know. It feels good. It feels great. I feel bad for people that don't get it. I will disparage them because um I don't know. I don't mean
so
disparage in a bad way. I know that's a negative word, but you know what I mean.
right. So I never feel comfortable imposing on people, but I'm gonna seize this moment right here, Hack, because it just occurred to me what you should do. I know what you should do, and this is as friend to friend. You should sign up for a marathon, bro.
No, fuck that, bro.
Because for me, by the way, because I hated running when I found out that that you could just lift heavy 5x5 and like that was like, or you could do hit. I was like, hell yeah, like f running. I was like, and then it was only because of Muay Thai that there's a, they say no run no fight, like you have to run, like you have to put on these like miles and miles, and it's the most mind numbing, boring, not even competitive thing. And um
That sounds awful,
but
bro.
that's exactly it though. But that's why I think we've been buttoned up against this thing. What's this thing? This awful thing, right? This awful thing that would that Hack could do. Anyway, I'm always playing around with that stuff, but I think it would be so interesting. Like I would pay a documentary team to follow your
That'd
first
be
marathon.
that'd be boring as shit, dude. I'll be walking and stuff. You're supposed to be running, dude.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Um, all jokes aside, though, you know that I'm pretty passionate about running now, just for the reason, for just on the basis that it's so damn boring, and that's where all the value is. The value is the fact that it's boring, but it's still exercise, and it's what our bodies are, primed to do. It's the number one sport in the world. It's so accessible. All you need is, I mean, arguably, you don't even need shoes. Um, so, anyways, I needed to plug running again, just
I wonder how
because.
far I can run. How long would you have to train? Let's say for a half marathon. Like,
Oh, for a half marathon?
let's say I've never ran long distances before since like, I don't know, let's say high school or something.
I don't know, probably a month or something like that. I can't remember. There's a number for it. Like, there's a whole structured training program.
I feel like if
Um,
I ran a mile every day for a week, and then next week I just bumped it up to like, I don't know, 2 miles every day,
mm-hmm,
and then next week I just bumped it up to like 3 miles every day. Can you just like scale like that until you get to a point where you're like, all right, I'm at four
mm-hmm,
miles a day, so I could probably just like run forever now,
yeah.
and then just
Basically, yeah. 100%, dude. So, by the way, we're in like the golden age of ultra running. Like, people are breaking records left and right across all age groups, across all genders. People running like 50 milers, 60, 100 milers, 24 hours nonstop. Like, it's insane. Like people are just busting through it, right? So yeah, your typically a training program is it kind of oscillates, and then there's one long run a week, basically, like on the weekend, and you just kind of continue that. But I definitely got into a point. Remember, I ran the 46 miles on a whim. You get to a point with your running where you're like, I feel like I could run infinitely, if you wanted to, which is a pretty liberating feeling, you know.
yeah,
Um,
it'd feel nice to be
yeah,
able to do that. I guess I don't know. Maybe I'll do it one of
yeah,
these days. I just feel like I'm gonna get super skinny if I just start like long distance like running.
yeah.
Because I haven't like lifted in like it's probably been like 9 months or something like that, right? So I feel like, and even when you're lifting, if you do a lot of like long distance cardio, it kind of like just like drains away
Mm.
like your gains and stuff like that. So because I'm a naturally like pretty relatively skinny dude. Um, so I don't know, man. I guess that was the one thing where I'm like, you know what, the 5x5 thing seems kind of fun. I'd rather sprint than jog, and so that's why I haven't gotten to that point yet.
Yeah, yeah. Sounds good. Well,
Maybe
we'll
maybe a
plant that
10
seed.
maybe a 10K. What's the easiest, like if I'm like, yo, I just want to train for a week and then go run one of those. Like, you think 10K? I could probably do that, right?
You can already do a 10K. You can do a 10K right now. Um, you don't need to be trained. You just need to be like a bait. Like any person who does any sport or is moderately active can do a 10K. Um, you train a little bit for a half marathon, it's 13 miles, but that's not. Yeah,
Oh,
you wouldn't
dude.
even need to train that one that much either.
Hmm.
Like a 10 miler would be a good first like breakthrough. I would say a good first race.
Okay, maybe I'll do one of these days. It doesn't seem
Yeah,
that hard, but it
yeah.
obviously I just don't want to do it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, we'll plant a seed and make it a group thing because typically. So another thing is that I should mention too is that race events are actually super fun. I know it sounds kind of dorky, but like the 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 thing that they set up around it, like the vendors, the people, the race crew, the whatever, is actually pretty cool. And the route that they put out, and typically they run all the different distances on one track. So like I could sign up for a marathon and you could sign up for a 10 miler and we would run together for that first part. You know, you'd loop back, I would continue, and then we'd all be in the same place and like, chill. So we definitely do a group thing, but we'll plant the seed now and see if maybe this time next year we'll have we'll have done some kind of running event.
It probably wouldn't take a year. I could probably turn this around in like a month, right?
Oh no, it wouldn't take a year. I'm just saying that it would just, you know, give us the runway for it to happen when it happens.
We forgot to talk about the weekly resolution, and I know,
Ah, let's
and
talk
we're
about that
coming.
real quick. Yeah.
Well, we could also push it to next week. More
Okay.
importantly, that weekly resolution, the phone thing actually helped me a lot. I kind of fell off of it towards the end of the week, but even falling off of it, my worst day was like an hour and a half compared to my normal day the previous week, which is probably like 5 hours of screen time. So
Yeah.
even then, it was like super helpful. So I'm wondering if we don't have to talk about it now because I think we probably want to go a little deeper into it, perhaps.
Sure.
Um, but you want to set another one this week? It doesn't have to be the same phone thing. It could be the same phone thing. I would prefer to do a different one if possible.
No, it's a
Um,
different one.
because
Yeah.
I think those are super helpful for me. I don't know how it feels for you, but even that very first day when I was like that first like that whole day, my quality of attention and experience like just went up like 50% just not being on my phone.
It was incredible, man. It was life changing. Honestly, I dropped 58%. I think, and it super huge change in the quality of my experience. And then yesterday, I let myself do some reading, like deep dive, and like a lot of times if I indulge, it doesn't necessarily mean like in social media. It just means like reading a bunch of random facts on Reddit that are
Mhm.
useless and I'll never do anything with. But it was different. Even though I said, "Oh, I'm going to let myself just like go," it was really great. So anyway, yeah, we'll deep dive more into that. But it was a huge positive, huge win. Um, love it. So yeah, let's spend maybe the next like 5 minutes. Let's riff. What do you think we should do for the next week? What's something that you would
So
like
in
to
this
talk about?
case we broke a habit. Like we were like
Yeah.
the habit of losing ourselves on our phone. I
Uh,
wouldn't mind trying to do something to either build a habit or if there's another habit to break. I'm probably gonna personally continue the phone thing on some level.
mm-hmm.
Um, but I don't know what's a habit that you wanna like build or break or I mean I've been meditating a lot, but I could double down on that too. Like I mean
Yeah.
I've probably been hitting like maybe 10 to 20 minutes a day. But if we wanted to do like a meditation one, I'd probably do like up like for myself at least I'd probably double that. Or I mean I don't
Mm-hmm.
know, rifting on what habits would be. Maybe I could go jog a mile a day or something, something like that. But it's like snowing outside though.
Yeah.
Um,
So there's three that I can think of. One is taking my daily supplements, which uh, I've gotten that under control over the past 2 weeks, but don't know if that's something you're interested in. Or maybe we can just do a combo habit building one, like habit stack for these ones. Um, I would love to do a meditation one. My meditation has fallen off, so I'd probably want to add that one back. And then daily stretching, maybe like 10-15 minutes of daily stretching.
Daily stretching might be a good one.
Yeah.
There's also okay. My meditation coach had me do this for a week, and it actually was kind of cool. Um, and I don't know if we want to do this one, but he said every day for the week he wanted me to give something to somebody, like
Mm.
just give something. It doesn't have to be big. It doesn't have to be. It could be if you want it to be. But it requires you to kind of like think about something and be like, hey, like I don't know, here's a flower, bro, or whatever the case may be. And that was a cool exercise I did for a week. Um, so I mean that's also another idea. But it requires thought and it requires and it requires you feel a certain way when you're like, hey, like I thought about you. Like here's
Yeah.
so I mean we could do something like that too. But I'm down for
That.
anything. I just want to have a weekly resolution because I think it'd be nice to because I mean you know how I feel about New Year's resolutions. I feel the opposite about weekly resolutions.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Oh, okay, cool. Um, how about we? You want to do the stretching routine?
Yeah, I'm down to do the stretching thing.
We should pick one, like maybe there's like a YouTube set routine or something. So just so that we're standardized on the same one, you know what I mean? And we have no outs. Like you have to complete the one.
Yeah, I have I have a 15-minute routine that I used to do. I might be able to dig up the video for it, and I can send it to you if you want.
Let's
Um,
do it. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, let's try that. I feel like this won't hit the same way as the phone one will, because that phone thing literally like probably saved me like 3 hours a day.
Yeah.
Um, but I think weekly resolutions are a nice amount of volume for.
Yeah. Well, it's good that we got the phone one out the gate on the first week of the year because it's literally the foundation, right? It's like it affects all others so much. It's the biggest lever, like for sure.
In the
For me,
future,
at least.
I think we should do morning pages as a practice, perhaps. I already do
Mm,
that, but I make it so I only do 5 minutes. Um, the writer recommends 45 minutes. I don't have 45 minutes, but I could definitely like be like, all right, how about this? Instead of 5 minutes, I'll do 15 minutes.
mm.
Just to kind of see what's going on in there. Because morning pages actually, I think for me is as good as a practice as meditation in terms of value.
Awesome. I'm down for that too.
So that could be a future
I
one.
know that you've been doing, you and a lot of people have been doing morning pages. I've just been doing like standard journaling, but I would love to try out like a frame. So, all right.
Oh
So
yeah.
I'm so glad that you remembered that. We will catch up next week on both our experiences with the phone as well as our experience with the stretching, and then we'll come up with a third one. And at that point, we will have done 3 out of 52, and just got to keep the train going, right?
Would you ever quit caffeine for a week?
Oh yeah, I have. I mean, I actually have probably haven't had caffeine for like 2 weeks already. And
Really?
yeah,
That might be one that I would want to do. I don't remember the last time I didn't have a cup of coffee for like a day. Like
yeah.
it's been that long. Maybe on some random weekends when I would wake up late on a Sunday, I wouldn't drink coffee. It'll be like 3 p.m. Uh, but I probably drink coffee 99% of days.
That
If you
would be
ever,
a great one then.
yeah,
Yeah.
that'd be a fun one. All right, let's wrap this and then we'll come back and remember to talk about the weekly resolutions for next week.
Sounds good. Episode 28. It's a wrap.
Yep.